here's where we are. You know, we were talking about what was going on upstream, 4 or 5 square miles of land in that upper watershed. To really clean this creek up, you know, is either homeowners that really want to see the creek cleaned up close to where you live. You have to really kind of talk with property owners and work out a whole kind of watershed approach with, you know, several hundred industries, commercial outlets. There's about 1,000 homes that are in this 4 to 5 square mile watershed. So it's, you know, you got to work it in a lot of different ways through village newsletters, and you have to get a lot of supporters, I guess, that want to clean a river that live above this property, as well as those of you who live on the property. And then you got to think too, you know, from this point when it leaves your property, the creek goes on another 4 or 5 miles down till it hits Hickory Creek at the golf course. This is US 30 in New Lenox. And here's the New Lenox Park District golf course. Sanctuary, thank you. What's interesting, I think, is you can see how channelized the creek is. So you get about a half mile past, what's the mile road past Wolf Road?
Town line?
Town line, I guess, yeah. You get about a half mile past town line, and then the creek goes back into a natural meandering. And if we were, you know, if we do the fish shocking and macroinvertebrate survey here, what would be really interesting would be to spend part of that same day and go down here and look at it in the creek in a natural condition. Because there'll be a lot more fish species, a lot more macroinvertebrates in the meanders than what you see up here. But the meanders kind of show you what you could be, you know, if you allow this creek. It'd be tougher to re-meander it because it's so in size, but you can do pools and riffles by putting in slugs of rocks, you know, about every 50 feet or so. And then the water kind of cascades over those rocks, forms a pool, cascades over the rocks. That's great fish habitat, great macroinvertebrate habitat. It wasn't me, but
no,
yeah,
not
but
you
some,
personally.
right, yeah, but other
organization.
Yeah. No, that could be.
Yeah, right in this area here.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is like, I think the old historic area Marley was about.
Yeah.
So, what I find intriguing about this creek is we know very, very little about it, what lives in it, you know, what's the water quality, and so I think it's a great opportunity to get to know it, to explore it. You know, start on this property, but look at it upstream, look at it downstream, and really learn what it's all about. I think I had one other, oh yeah. Yeah, we're kind of winding back towards the end here. So the final point I wanted to make, and I don't have enough copies here for everybody, I think I only made 5 or so. But what can you do as a homeowner to add value? Because every home in this watershed is draining, you know, very quickly over your lawn and then straight into a storm sewer. It's discharging right into the creek. So all the chemistry, you know, on your soils is ending up in the creek somewhere. Everybody living above you, same thing's happening. You know, all their storm water's going into a storm pipe, discharging directly in the creek. And since we're all based on lawns, you know, you're not going to get rid of your lawns. You know, as conservationists, we understand that. So I've got 3 different suggestions. You know, one is plant just a small patch of prairie plants, 5 by 10 feet or 10 by 10 feet. You know, make a little bit of your yard a native landscaping area. You know, if each of you do a 5 by 10 foot area, 50 square feet, if you had 1,000 homes that did that, you know, that's 50,000 square feet. I mean, that's an acre of restored prairie just in a whole bunch of backyards. That adds incredible value. It really doesn't sound like much, but when we have rainstorms, 365 days a year, we have 100 plus rain events. Probably 80 to 85, 90% of those rain events are just quarter-inch rains, just a little sprinkle, you know, and if the soil is kind of waterlogged, that little sprinkle will run off into the storm sewer. Well, if you have a little bit of prairie located in the right spot on your property where your storm water is draining, and you can capture 80% of those storm events and keep it out of the creek, that's a huge help. And all it takes is a little prairie patch in your yard. I don't want to say yet that it's okay to gather seed in this prairie, but I mean, I would think that might be one goal that we try to work out with the village, that this could be a seed gathering location, you know, where homeowners could transfer some of the seeds into their yards. And that's a lot of fun. You'll be attracting butterflies, and you know, it just adds some real interesting value to the property. Another technique is with everybody mows, right? So when you mow, if you mow low, the carbohydrates in the plant, you know, they get sent back up to the top leaf. You know, they want to regrow that grass blade again. That's where all the energy of the plant's going back up into that grass blade so we can grow. If you don't mow real low and let the grass grow a little higher, the carbohydrates go into the root system, and the roots get a little bigger and deeper and thicker. Now it's a Kentucky bluegrass lawn, you know, it's just going to be another inch. I mean, it may be 2 inches of root system, but you add 2 more inches of root system in a Kentucky bluegrass lawn, that's a lot more stormwater absorption. It's a lot healthier lawn. You know, so when we get these 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch rains, you know, you'll be absorbing a bigger rain. You know, the soil won't be compacted close to the surface and running off quick. You'll have that extra inch or 2 to absorb the rain. So that's the second thing you can do. The third thing you can do is a lot more interesting, I think, in a little bit of a change of culture, but it still involves your lawn. There was a big article in the newspaper a couple of years ago that Harvard University started. They had lawns all over the place. They mowed them down to the ground. They'd have tens of thousands of people walking on the lawn all the time. You know, the lawns just weren't handling it. It was a huge expense to Harvard University, like any college campus, to keep the lawns looking good. So they turned to it, and they did their lawns just the way we all do, which is to put fertilizers and pesticides and herbicides on it. And their root systems were only 3 or 4 inches deep. So their staff, their public works staff, learned that if we do organic lawn care, if we use mulches and we compost all this material all over Harvard, they're cutting tree branches, raking leaves. You know, they feed, I think, 1,000+ meals, you know, every breakfast, lunch, and dinner. All that food waste, all that went into a composting system. And they would take this compost and they put it in bags, fabric bags, and they would create what was called compost tea. Now what compost tea is basically creating a huge microbial colony in the water that then would get sprayed on their lawn, and all those microbes that we are all killing off with our herbicides, pesticides, and fertilizers, all those microbes go into the soil, and they do what fertilizers do. You know, they take nitrogen out of the air and they fixate it onto the roots, so you don't need the fertilizer, you don't need the phosphorus. You know, they break down the soil. They make the root systems grow deeper, more fully. That makes the grass more luxurious, more stable. And they were seeing a 7 and 8 inch root system, what used to be a 3 or 4 inch root system in their lawns. And so if you look on the internet, I've got 5 organic tea recipes that they use here that you can pull off the web. Just look up Harvard compost tea, and you'll see a whole bunch of stuff show up in the web. They'll give you the recipes for making the tea, and your lawn will never look better, you know. And you won't be spending money on, you know, it's going to be a little bit of work making your tea, but it's 24 to 48 hours. You have to get a little air, you know, $15 air compressor and bubble air through it. They show you how to get PVC tubing and bubble the air through the tea. And then you just put in your watering can and you water your lawn. And you do that for a year or 2, you won't believe how your lawn looks. And it'll be a living lawn. It will not be a chemically dependent lawn anymore. the stormwater runoff will be much cleaner, it'll be much less